Hey everyone, welcome back to a great podcast we have with a very special guest. This is Film and Fears in the Metaverse, Unlocking Success in Web3. Welcomes Monica Taher. How you doing?
How are you, Carlota? I'm doing fine. Thank you for the invitation.
No problem. Now I want to make sure I pronounced your last name correctly. Please tell me.
Taher.
Taher. Oh, that's wonderful. So we have a great show today. Today, Monica shares her experience as a woman spearheading Web3 businesses, business development efforts for corporations and government contracts. She's done a lot of great things. I can't wait till she gets into her story. And now, Monica, as VP of Marketing for Rocket Fuel, coach of her own brand, Monica shares how she empowers women through technology as a way to minimize the gender gap pay, because today us women are not getting paid for what we deserve, and we're glad to have individuals like Monica champion that on to make sure we get what we do deserve. So Monica, I was looking at your bio. You have a list of great gems and things that you've been a part of. One thing that I noted here, that you're listed in Bloomberg's 2022 most influential people in business in Latin America.
That is correct. It was a great honor given to me by Bloomberg, and I really think that there are more women. I was actually the only Salvadorian in a list of 4 people. The other 3 businessmen. And I do think that there are absolutely more women, not just in El Salvador, but in all of Latin America and then the world. The issue is that we do not get as much recognition, or perhaps we're still in a heavily male-dominated industry, and hence why we're doing this work, in order to let young women, in order to let girls know that it is possible. It is absolutely possible to do the same things that men do.
Absolutely. And of course, I see here that those in position really think highly of you and what you stand for, because you've had some proclamations by former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, also Governor Gavin Newsom, and just a host of individuals. So you've been able to rub elbows and stand next to some people that are making some decisions for how the way we progress in today's society. So great. I definitely want to get into your story. Tell me, you are from San Salvador, which you just mentioned. What was it like growing up there, if you could tell us briefly?
Definitely. I am Salvadorian and very proud of that, especially because of the changes that we're seeing right now with the Bitcoin law, with the adoption of the Bitcoin law, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a bit. But I can tell you that I had a very happy childhood. However, my parents always instilled in me the love for academia, for reading. Both of my parents were academics, university professors, and I want to, in a way, perhaps express that I had a very peculiar upbringing because of that. I was a little bit lucky because of that. And as time progressed, I realized that if I stayed in El Salvador, I would have somehow hit a ceiling, meaning a glass ceiling, if you will, meaning I would have a good job had I still, if I still lived there. I had my friends and a very interesting social life. However, I knew that I could do more, and I wanted to do more, and I always had a desire to come to the States and study, go to college here in the States, where I now reside. I've been living here in the United States for about 33 years, and it is a decision that I do not regret, because it opened my mind and it gave me so many opportunities. And I owe so much to this country in terms of, what it's giving me, a business, a daughter, and so many other things. I do love my home country, but I am also in debt to the United States because of where I'm at.
Yeah.
right now.
As I was doing my research, I noticed that there were some subjects that you became obsessed with, that I guess in regards to your learning, where we're talking about the education and things like that. What was your process of learning, and your life application? Can you take me through like that little journey?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely think that I owe that to my parents. They always um, taught me how to not just the need for reading and educate myself more, even beyond what I was getting at school, but the fact that they explained to me from an early age that there was a world out there that I needed to know, and that meant other cultures and languages. I'm fluent in 4 languages, and I have an obsession for traveling and learning about other people's cultures. I do think that people who do not travel, and I'm referring specifically to my country, people in my country, for that, either because of economical reasons or any other reasons, they do not travel. They stay in the same place, meaning they do not see that there is a world full of opportunities out there where ideas can be debated, and sometimes you need to have an open mind in order to accept other people's ideas. And when you stay in one place for a long time, it's very hard to do that. Therefore, I do think that it is necessary for women, especially because of what we're dealing with. It doesn't matter if you live in the States, in El Salvador, in Europe. There is an issue regarding the gender pay gap. There is an issue regarding not being able to sometimes perform careers or the tasks that men do. For instance, we see a huge gap in engineering, in that career. Hence, it is important for us to keep educating ourselves constantly. It's a process that should never end, regardless if you already went to college and you already have a master's degree, and it doesn't matter, especially in the time that we're living in right now, where information is so accessible, YouTube and so many other things. There's no excuse for women not to be educated and not to keep having access to, especially in this case, new technologies, which is what's really ruling the world.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because I've been doing some research on my own, just in regards to some of the things that I can tap into to be on emerging trends and different things out there that's helpful for us. And I remember over 2022, I almost forgot what year we're in. Time flies so fast. Over 2022, I think 2021, I was seeing a lot of advertisements, especially for, particularly from like Google, IBM, and different sectors that were advertising for minorities, particularly those of color, and different things, to really get into some of these career fields, because they were seeing a domination of men and not enough diversity. So they were offering a lot of perks and benefits and things like that to women that are looking to get into this particular space. And we all know that when businesses do that, that's really a tax cutoff, for them. But they were offering those incentives and things like that. So that's very interesting that you say that, because we as women need to understand what other options are out there for us, so we can be able to tap in as well, because we can't just have things just being led by just the male mind. Women have minds too, and have things to talk about and have things to contribute. So when the two come together in alignment, it's a powerful combination. But in regards to immersion and technology and combination, Bitcoin, which is something that I just recently learned about over the pandemic, especially in 2022. Bitcoin was all the rage and things like that, and I was on various platforms and hearing about it, and I even tapped into a little Bitcoin myself. Now I was one of those people that could put a whole lot of money into Bitcoin, but I got a few little coins spread out, like with ApeCoin and different things, and Ethereum, stuff like that. So with you got into the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space early. So tell me, how early and why did you get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. In order to tell you about how I bought Bitcoin for the first time in 2014, I do not consider myself an early adopter because, as Bitcoin has been around for about 14 years, and I had access to Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper in 2014, and it caught my attention because as soon as I read it, I knew that we were at the front of something that was going to revolutionize, if not the current monetary system, international monetary system, absolutely something that was going to give power to the common citizen, to us as people, in order not to necessarily depend on the banking industry. And that was huge. So, but besides reading about Bitcoin, what caught my attention was the technology behind it, which is blockchain. In my humble opinion, I do believe that blockchain will become the next revolution, similar to what the internet was at the beginning of the 90s. We just haven't seen it yet. We're way too early. I decided to buy Bitcoin in 2014. At that time, it was trading for $210 per unit, compared to now, which is, I think it reached 22 yesterday.
Yes, I told you, yeah.
22,000. But
yeah, I said, let's be specific. You were paying
exactly
$2.10. In 2023, it's at $22,000. Go on.
Exactly. Actually, $210. Not two.
Oh, 210. Okay, well, that's still.
Which still was okay, because if you think about how stocks trade, and an Apple stock or any other stock is, let's say, it's around the same price, right? So I thought it was a good investment at that time, and I bought a bunch of Bitcoin, like I said, in 2014. But what took me there? I didn't necessarily go to school. I went to UCLA. But I didn't necessarily go to school to study technology. I landed in technology by mistake, if you will. And I do feel compelled to sharing my personal story, which I always do, because I think that any woman that might be listening to your podcast, or anybody who might be going to my website at monicataher.com, Taher with an H, might read my story and might identify themselves with what I went through. And what I'm talking about is basically a divorce. Many of us can have a failed relationship, a divorce, a separation, anything, a death in the family, anything that will impact us not only emotionally but also financially. And in that case, that's exactly what happened to me. So I got to a point where I was anxious, depressed, very, very sad because of what I was going through at that time. I had a daughter who was 13 years old when I went through my divorce, and I was struggling because at that time, after having two incomes at home, I was left with only mine. And at that time, like I said, it was a salary, meaning I was depending on a job. And my only salary was not going, I knew that it was not going to be enough to pay for everything, my mortgage, the bills, my daughter's needs. So that anxiety became a need. I knew that I needed to do something quick in order to either increase my income or see what I could do to reinvent myself. And that's exactly what happened. So I started reading online what I could do in order to perhaps get another career, increase my income. And I landed in technology, and I started learning a little bit, just more and more on a daily basis about technology. I decided to go back to school, obtained a master's degree, and next thing I know, I was on CNN in Espanol on a weekly basis, providing tech and finance commentary. And that's exactly when my life changed. Yes. Because the company I was working for, made me a minority partner. And all of a sudden, my income increased, and I started doing other types of consulting, jobs for other companies. And literally, I was saved, financially speaking. And I do like sharing my story because, like I said, perhaps you're not going through a divorce, but it doesn't mean that it might not happen to you in the future, or you might be going through another experience that might minimize your income. And money is a factor that we do not, as women, we do not necessarily talk about enough.
Yeah.
We gravitate around money every single day, but sometimes we let money to control us. And it's supposed to be the opposite. We need to control money. We need to stay on top of our personal finances. So to go back to your initial question, it was my divorce what actually made me invest in Bitcoin back in 2014.
And you were thinking very correctly. You tapped on something that was on the rise, and you benefited from that quite handsomely. And sometimes as women, we do need to know how to shift and pivot. And you've described that very greatly. Now you said that you worked in technology and business innovation as a director at Invest SV at the government of El Salvador, where you onboarded a number of companies that migrated to El Salvador after the Bitcoin law adoption. Can you explain the Bitcoin law adoption, please? Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Femme and Fierce in the Metaverse. If you want to hear the full interview with my amazing guests and stay up to date on all the latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and anywhere else podcasts live. Don't forget to join our newsletter at femmeandfiercemedia.com to stay in the loop on all the exciting announcements and exclusive content. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.